Hey guys, it's Alex from Board Game Co. here with another video, this one about COVID-19 and how it's currently affecting our industry and how it's going to continue to affect our industry. Now, while every topic I cover, every review I give, every top 10 list, every single one of these is my own opinion, and I hope that's obvious. This one, I think more so than most, needs an additional disclaimer that what I'm saying is my opinion. What I'm saying is based on what I know about the industry, what we're already seeing, some degree of common sense, but there's nothing written in stone here. This is not a fact. This is not a guarantee. It's just what I believe based on what I'm already seeing and based on, like I said, common sense and knowledge of the industry as it is. So a lot of people, I've seen a lot of threads, a lot of comments, a lot of forum posts about COVID-19, what it's going to do to the board game industry, what we can expect to see in the months ahead. And there are a lot of things that I've seen that I believe are accurate. There's a lot of commentary that I believe reflects my own opinion, and there's also a lot of fear-mongering and a lot of uncertainty in general. So I figured I'd jump in with my own 2 cents of what I currently believe is happening and what I currently believe it's going to mean for our industry in both the short and the long term. So let's start with the short term. To begin with, in the short term, the biggest victim of this in our industry, not the biggest victim period, the biggest victim from the board game stance is likely to be the FLGS, the friendly local game stores. There's many ways in which this will both help and hurt board games in general. But for sure, the ones most negatively affected will be friendly local game stores, will be that local game store that you patronize that you can't because depending on the state you live in, depending on the country you live in, you might be in an absolute lockdown, you might be in social distancing mode where it's recommended to not spend as much time, or it might be complete laissez-faire. Depending on where you live, it's going to be a different answer everywhere. But for sure, for a lot of places, any single friendly local game store, every single local shop is going to see a major decrease in foot traffic, whether it's a decrease or a complete closing of stores until something changes. And that's a huge blow to them. This is something that, I mean, as a small business owner ourselves, I can tell you that most small businesses can't afford to see a drastic reduction in revenue for a few months and just be fine. There's no way past that. And while we are seeing some degree of easing of like business loans, easier to get business loans or lowered interest rates in order to help businesses through this, without some major government assistance or something, or your assistance, we'll get to that, just because you can get a loan doesn't mean you can deal with the expenses. As a friendly local game store, you now have a choice to make. If your business is dropping like crazy, you have a real and scary choice to make about letting employees go, letting them off short term and passing that burden, that blow onto them. And I'm not saying that in a negative way. I understand you have to do what you have to do to balance your books. You have to do to pay your bills. If you don't have traffic coming in, someone's going to lose. And it could be the store, it could be the employee, it could be both. And it likely is going to be both. So you can survive. Hopefully most businesses can survive a few weeks of either no revenue or half revenue or what have you, but this is predicted currently to be, it's uncertain. I want to go with predictions of a corona because there's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of ranges in how much this is going to affect people and for how long. We're seeing anything from, week-long shutdowns, 2-3 weeks, to people saying this will go on for 3, 4, 5 months, or we'll have multiple rounds of social distancing. There's lots and lots of predictions out there, and I don't want to focus too much on any one of them because they're all over the place. There's no real knowledge out there. There's a lot of predictions, many of them based on data, but there's no perfect answer. So as a local game store, they're going to be hurt. And this is something that, take it into account. Thankfully, we're not a local game store. We're an online game store, so we don't have that as much to worry about. But that's just because we don't have to worry doesn't mean others don't. And this is definitely a time to support those stores if you're able to. Go out and buy a gift card, buy a game that's on your wish list. If you know you're going to be buying from them down the road, buy from them now. There's a lot of things you can do, and I'm not placing any burden on you. We're all nervous to an extent. There's many people out right now who are dealing with lower income. They're just dealing with a lack of fear, especially if you're in the service industry, depending on what industry you're in. But people are seeing anything from just a general fear and uncertainty to an actual complete loss of their income. So there's no burden on you. Whatever you can do, you can do. No guilt, no whatever. We all have to make difficult decisions, and that is what it is. So that's, I mean, it's a long section spent on local game stores, because unfortunately that's the biggest certainty we have, because it's short term and we're already seeing it. It's past local game stores, it's a little less clear. In terms of the board game, let's say online store like ourselves, you're going to see both. Short term, you might actually see a bump. Short term, because what you're going to see in the first few weeks, you're going to typically see a bit of a bump in sales as people are stuck at home, and those 3 games that were on their wish list, suddenly someone wants to go get them, and they're also more likely to buy them online because of being shut in. So online stores might actually see a short-term boost. In terms of how long that boost will last, again, it's unclear to an extent, because you're seeing 2 competing factors in different directions. You're seeing the desire for more board games from both gamers and non-gamers alike now that people are shut inside, but you also have this general fear and lack of certainty going on that's going to limit what people are willing to spend. If you're someone who has 100 games on the shelf, and if you're in the service industry and you're taking less of a paycheck, you're suddenly less likely to spend money online. And please don't, by the way, if you can't afford a game, if you're not sure what your paycheck's going, to save your money. Like, I mean, I want to sell as many games as possible, but I want to do so to people who can afford it, and to people who aren't putting anything in jeopardy to do so. Not to tell you what to do, but please be conservative with your money if you're concerned about paying your bills. So online, you're seeing that competing factor, that desire for additional games to pass the time while you're spending time inside with your family, with your spouse, with whoever. At the same time, there's that fear whether you're actually seeing a decrease in your paycheck or whether you're just worried about what this means. I mean, the economy is getting hit on all sides right now, and even to those people who aren't currently affected right now, some of them might be affected down the road. The nature of the economy, the nature of the interlinkedness of everything, is that a negative factor to a group of people is going to scale around. Which brings us to the next thing, which is the stimulus checks. I don't know how much you've been following the news or whatnot, and I don't want to list any numbers because I know these things are constantly changing. But as of right now, there supposedly is a bipartisan. I apologize, by the way, this is relevant to any U.S. viewers, but I don't know the other economies or what other countries are doing right now. So this specific section is relevant to U.S. only. But there's a stimulus check process going on, a bipartisan movement to give everyone basically a check. A check it's going to cap out based on income limits, but it's a check that's going to vary based on your family size, number of adults, number of kids, and it's still a lot of aspects are unclear, such as the amount, how it'll be taxed, and all that. But a stimulus check is going to potentially be a huge boost to game stores. And I say this with both. This is both a good thing and a bad thing. It goes when people get a free check, when you get a giant check out of the blue, just no difference in a tax refund. There's a driving force to spend it like it's free money, and that often means luxury items like board games. If you're a gamer, and especially if you're a stuck-at-home gamer, and you suddenly get an extra check, both FLGS, both friendly local game stores, and online game stores might see a big portion of that check depending on what you're spending. And going back to my thing I said before, please don't buy board games if you need the money for something else. Please. I mean, again, I want all your money. Trust me, I want all your money, but only as long as you can pay your bills. That is first and foremost, is pay your bills, be safe, stay protected. Don't spend money you can't afford to spend on luxury items like board games. I'd rather close down the store. I'm here for Board Game Co. is here for mutually beneficial transactions and not ones where we're putting people in a negative position. But yeah, so that for those who can afford to spend that, for those that maybe they don't need that full amount of the check. Again, if you're in the service industry, you might need that full check. If you're not seeing a paycheck, the stimulus check may not even be enough to cover anything. But on the other hand, if you're at a desk job being paid to work from home right now and everything's all hunky-dory right now, there will be a strong temptation to spend a big part of that check on luxury items. It might be paying for that fridge you've been saving for a few months. It might be setting aside $200 for board games. So that will be a boost short term. Again, that combination of extra cash and as well as people staying at home will likely have a positive effect on the industry short term. Which brings us to the long-term aspect, the long-term effects of things. And these are a lot harder to predict, specifically because we have no idea, or at least no certain idea, of how long COVID-19 is going to be around, how long it's going to be affecting our lives, and to what degree and to what level of certainty. Long term, it could be anything. It could be the supply chain could be majorly hit. We're already seeing borders closing, not to commerce yet, but anything can change at any point. We're seeing borders closing. We're seeing many places, any non-essential places are being shut down. So factories, non-essentials, they're slowly being shuttered. The degree and the extent is different place to place, and for how long is different place to place. But all of these things will certainly affect the supply chain of board games. It's going to affect how quickly a game goes from conception to delivery. We've already seen Frosthaven just delayed for a week because of this, and that's something that was already in the final stages. You take any timeline and you take an office used to working together, and they all have to work remotely all of a sudden, both in terms of timeline, of ability to actually do things. You're going to see, you very well may see delays in the general supply chain of board games. Now, thankfully, we live in a golden age of board games where there's so many board games out there that this is not necessarily going to have an effect on your ability to acquire games, but it might have an effect on game stores who rely on that cult of the new to bring people in the doors. If you're constantly pushing out new games and you're constantly expecting that revenue, and we're seeing a drastic shift to the economy and a drastic shift to the supply chain, that could have a serious long-term effect on any number of stores' abilities to cope, to function long-term. Kickstarters are one we're already seeing uncertainty on. If you're launching a new Kickstarter, you have a real choice to make. Do you launch a Kickstarter today, hoping that everything's going to be hunky-dory in a few months and it won't really affect anything and it'll all be good? Or do you hold off because who knows how many people are not going to back because they currently aren't getting a paycheck? Who knows how many people aren't going to back because even though they have a paycheck, they're scared of what the future is going to bring. It can really hurt the ability of your Kickstarter to do well if people are concerned about COVID-19. And every day that goes by, it's getting increasingly scarier. It's getting increasingly more nervous. Meaning long term, this is still not a disease that seems to be, wiping out the population, thank God, but it's still a hugely negative effect on people, on the health of people, on the economy in general. This is not something to minimize by any means. And again, I've said this at the beginning, but a huge thing. I'm purely talking about the board game industry here. This is not meant to in any way compare the desire for board games, or desire for the industry to do well, to the death and or suffering of others. It is not meant to be an equation of any sorts. It's not meant to equate the two. Equate. So what can you do? A lot of it we don't know. It's in the short term, like I said before, buy a game that's on your wish list. Buy a gift card from a store that you're anyways going to be buying from eventually. Reach out with words of support if you can't do anything else. Check in. We've gotten a whole bunch of messages from a whole bunch of customers. I hope you guys are doing well. I hope you guys are able to weather these times. I'm really concerned about you guys. And that's it. It means a lot. It means a lot to know that sometimes you're more than just a store. Sometimes you're more than just a place where people can buy games, but you also have a relationship with those customers. That you also are more than just the cheapest place you can buy something, but that you actually mean something. That you build those relationships. I can't speak for everyone, but I can tell you that to me personally, it means a lot every time I've gotten one of those messages. So reach on out to your local game store. Tell them you're thinking of them. Again, if you can buy a gift card or something else, go ahead and do so. Only if you can. Do not in any way put yourself in any danger or whatnot. Play games with your friends. Play games with your families. Stay indoors. There's only so much you can do. Whatever you can, you can. Whatever you can't, you can't. To some extent, over the next few months, we're likely to see both the best and worst in others. And thankfully, I want to say that I've mostly seen the best. On the one hand, fear is sweeping the world. It's sweeping the country. It's all over the place. People are nervous. On the other hand, we've seen everyone from small individuals on Facebook who are sitting there saying, how can I keep my local restaurant open, to giant multinational corporations offering their services and their software for free. There are from the big to the small, we are seeing huge waves of giving, it's a beautiful, beautiful thing to see. And again, I'm a cynic as well, don't get me wrong. When I see a large corporation offer their product for free, it's like, ooh, that's a nice free trial to get them in the doors when everything calms down. But cynicism aside, it's nice. It's nice to see these things being offered. And there's a huge expense. When the company like Zoom sits there and says everything's free for the next, who knows how long, there's a huge server expense, especially given the amount of people that are going to take advantage of that. This is a simultaneously scary but amazing time to be in. And again, amazing does not mean to minimize any of the negative. It just means that we are seeing the positive in ourselves. We're seeing the positive in companies big and small, and hopefully over the coming months we'll continue to see that when disaster strikes, hopefully it brings us closer together more than it drives us further apart. Those are my thoughts. Not a huge amount of guarantees in here. Again, short term I can tell you more than long term, because long term we just don't know how long things are going to last. That's basically it. Those are my 2 cents. I'm Alex from Board Game Co. As usual, if you like this video, go ahead and subscribe below, ring the bell for notifications, like, share, and really, again, I can't say this enough. Reach out with words of support to anyone you're afraid of. If it's a post on their Facebook page, an email, a call. For small business owners, it's going to be a scary time. In board games and other industries, it's going to be a scary time for small business owners, and whatever you can do to help is appreciated. Thank you so much, and until next time, hopefully with better news, have a good one.